Good morning, everybody. It's Jeremy Sutton, owner of Servant PT, host of the Servant PT podcast. Help women 50 and over live a life full of health, family, and fun. Today, I want to talk about, are you overwhelmed? Or have you ever been overwhelmed? Or do you feel like you might get overwhelmed? I would say that we've probably all been overwhelmed at some point or time in our lives, and it is not a good feeling. So, what I want to talk about today is the fact that we have the power and the opportunity to not let get ourselves overwhelmed. Not let get ourselves. I don't know if that made sense, but anyway, we have the power to not get overwhelmed. And so I have been a business owner for 2.5 years and worked here for it'll be 4 in December at the clinic. And whenever I got here, I took every opportunity to speak somewhere. I took every opportunity to be interviewed on. I didn't even have a podcast then. Podcast. I just took everything that came my way. If you asked me to do something, I said yes, and just tried to capture as much as I could. I did home health. I worked at a jail. I worked at another hospital in Shreveport. I did anything and everything I could to survive and to make sure that the business would survive. And that was great, and I had a lot of opportunities, and I'm super thankful for all of that. But eventually, it just got to be too much, and you start getting overwhelmed, and you start, the whole reason. One of the great things about owning your own business is that I think it helps tremendously with burnout, which is what a lot of PTs and a lot of medical professionals struggle with. But when you're chasing everything down, you're trying to make every penny you can, you're trying to save every penny you can, which is what I still do, but the way I was doing it was just getting very close to burnout again, which I've already been at multiple times in the last 10 years. So I came to a point this year earlier where I was working in Shreveport at a hospital 2 days a week, and I told my wife, I said, we're making consistent money here. It's good money, but I would rather, if we're going to own a business, I would rather just be at our business every day and make that work and pour everything into that business. And so that's what I did. We decided that was a good time to make a change, and business was pretty busy then, and I wasn't able to get our paperwork done and do administrative things. So I stopped, and now I'm here in Vivian every day. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm here in the mornings, and then I work in the afternoons on paperwork and podcasting and different things like that. But, early this week, I had a good friend and I that had decided to start a group together. And we had started that group and just some different things. And, we were talking about maybe doing a podcast together, interviewing people. We had talked about how to grow it. And I just felt uneasy about it all last week, and so finally we had scheduled a talk to talk about it. And this weekend I just said, hey, look, I just can't do that. It's taken away from my business, it's taken away from my family, and it's just too much. And so we decided not to really pursue anything further. I'll still help him out and do some things with it if I need to, but there's no we're not going to start a podcast, and we're not going to try to grow a bunch of stuff out of that. So I had to say no to that. And then yesterday I had, Tuesday I had a patient come and it was really better suited for home health. And so in the past I would have tried everything to serve that person here at the clinic. And I would have felt like I needed to because they came here, and I'm the one that needed to help them because they came to me for help. But this week I realized that I could still help and serve that person by getting them scheduled for home health and having somebody come out to their house. And so while directly I won't be the one doing the therapy, indirectly I still serve that person. I still got them what was best for them. And I don't think I would have seen that 2 years ago. I think I would have just been like, well, they're here. They've got somebody that can bring them. They may not be consistent, but I'll do the best I can. When in reality, I really would have been doing not what they needed. I would have just been trying to run through a wall, basically. And then yesterday had a podcast scheduled, and person had to, well, actually had it scheduled for today, and there was some miscommunication, and they thought it was for yesterday, and I just couldn't do it. I had a meeting with my mentor at 4:30 for 30 minutes or whatever, and then wanted to make another phone call, and then I was sitting in my driveway at 4:30 talking to my mentor, and I was ready to go in and hang out with my family, and the person I had for the podcast said, "Well, we can do it after 5 if you want to," and like I said, last year I would have been like, yep, I would have just gone inside, told Monica and the kids, hey, sorry, got to work one more hour, basically come in, give everybody a hug, and the kids go to the bedroom, lock the door, set up camera, microphone, earbuds, everything for the podcast, and just record it. But because I've taken on a different mentality of not being overwhelmed all the time, and I still have to hustle, and I still have to make things work for the business, but I've gotten to a better place now where I'm not letting things distract me as much. And so one of the big things with not being overwhelmed is being able to focus. And if you're focused on 10 different things, well, then really nothing is going to be done well. And so that's what I've really tried to do is now I just focus on my family, well, first, and then my business, and then my podcast. And so that's how those things even out. And it's really made a big difference because the business and the podcast was to make time with family better and more valuable and more meaningful. But what ends up happening is, well, first you take your focus off God, and then you start focusing on business and other things. And well, all of that gets out of whack. And so the more I focus on God, and then the more I start to focus on my family, well, then everything else starts to even back out and starts to work out again. There's still going to be days where I do get overwhelmed. I know that's going to happen to all of us from time to time. There's still going to be days where I don't get to spend as much time with my family as I wanted to. But for the most part, with that mentality shift, that mindset change, and that focus readjusted, well, now I can get things done a lot quicker, a lot more efficient, and I can spend a lot more time with my wife and kids. And I'll tell you right now, my wife came outside while I was talking to Greg, my mentor, on the phone, and she's like, "Hey, I'm just gonna send the kids out here to sit in the car with you because they're being ridiculous." Because they knew I was coming home early, and they knew I was gonna be there. And so, because I made that decision to say no to a bunch of other things, I was able to say yes to my wife and yes to my kids, yes to spending time with them, yes to having a good evening. Yes to walking the dog as a family, and all that stuff. And I didn't have to say yes to other things. Now I've rescheduled that person for the podcast for next week. No big deal. I'm happy. They're happy. I actually scheduled somebody else last night that I wasn't even thinking about scheduling for the podcast. So because I was able to focus on my wife and kids, those other things came anyway. I was rewarded for spending time on the most important things, which is my family, not my business. My business supports my family, but my family is still more important. So anyway, just want to talk about that today. Just try not to let yourself get overwhelmed. I know it's hard, easy to do sometimes to just get in that state of just constant overwhelm. But, try to set your priorities. Try to focus on one or two big things, one thing if you can, and just do your work for that. And, just hang out and enjoy life. So, guys, I hope that was helpful, and hope y'all have an amazing Thursday, and I will talk to y'all